Wayne's World, rising above the noise and confusion.
It's Wayne's Word.
Oh.
Welcome to this edition of Wayne's Word. Today we're going to talk about Colorado in crisis. After Democrats took over both chambers of the legislature in 2018, and by 2021 had full control of every statewide office, both U.S. Senate seats, things are not going well. Nothing illustrates this more immediately than the raid at a Colorado Springs underground nightclub early Sunday morning. The DEA, with cooperation, I might add, from local law enforcement from El Paso County and Douglas County and others, went in, and they're not supposed to do that. The legislature would have it so that local law enforcement actually work against DEA officers when trying to enforce immigration law. We have sanctuary policies to that extent, and they're trying to double down this session with another bill that forbids people who work in daycares and other places of public accommodation from assisting federal agents in any way. This is all presented to us as we need to be compassionate to what the Denver mayor, Michael Johnston, calls new arrivals. That's all well and good, except that among those new arrivals are a whole lot of hardened criminals, members of the prison TDA gang from Venezuela. We have other foreign gangs, MS-13. And if you think this isn't harmful, anyone who thinks this is not harming Colorado, all you have to do is look at a few key indicators. Consider that Colorado has the second highest rate in the country of teenage fentanyl overdoses. This means we have a lot of dead children in this country. Where does fentanyl come from? Most of it comes across the border. Most of it originates in China and then is smuggled into this country across the open border. It's not open now, but it has been open for many, many years. And the result is death. So Colorado's fatality rate from fentanyl among teenagers, we're talking 14 to 18, is almost 2.5 times the national average. Why is that? Do we just have teenagers here in Colorado who think fentanyl is a great thing and their parents are lenient? No, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the flood of illegal immigrants into this state. The reason they come into our state is because we have passed laws that tell them to come into our state. We've rolled out a red carpet for illegal immigrants. TDA realizes this, and that is why emails obtained by the Colorado Springs and Denver Gazette through a Colorado Open Records request found that law enforcement had intercepted emails from TDA that said they were making Colorado the gang's headquarters precisely because of Colorado's sanctuary policies. So the result is death. And these people they get bussed into Denver primarily, and they then make their way throughout the state. So on Sunday morning, just yesterday morning, federal officials detained more than 100 people living in the country illegally at an underground Colorado Springs nightclub, and they seized all sorts of drugs, pink cocaine, fentanyl, you name it. This was a drug trafficking underground nightclub operation. This is after Denver saw 43,000 immigrants, mostly from South and Central America, arrive illegally into our state in the past 2 years. That's like a medium-sized city of people coming to the state, unvetted. We don't know anything about them. Now, when you travel abroad, you get vetted. No matter where you go, you're going to go through customs. They're going to ask you what you're doing in the country that you're visiting. They're going to know who you are. You're going to have paperwork that lets you in, but not at the southern border. They've just been pouring across. And, of course, prison gangs see the United States as the land of opportunity. There's plenty to steal here. There's lots of wealth here. And there are a lot of people to buy drugs here in the United States. We have 2.5 times the nation's rate of teenage fentanyl deaths in Colorado. That is just tragic. We're losing young people over this feigned compassion that says, oh, we should just let these people in and we should put them in hotel rooms, luxury hotel rooms, give them debit cards to spend money that isn't theirs, and even extend Medicaid to these new arrivals. It's not just drugs and crime that come with this. In every way, Colorado has gone downhill under far left control of the legislature and a complicit governor, Jared Polis, who's actually a pretty smart guy and a well-intentioned fellow, but he signs a lot of this stuff into law. We don't regulate immigrants, illegal immigrants, but we do regulate businesses and permanent residents, law-abiding residents. The result of such extraordinary, obtrusive regulation is that our economy is tanking. We were long ranked among the top 5 states for economic performance. As of 2024, we were in the bottom 10. Personal income growth, we have fallen from 3rd in the country, meaning we had the 3rd highest personal income growth, to 39th between 2018 and 2024. That correlates, of course, with this uniparty rule that we are all living under here in what is now a socialist state. And that's despite some of the world's highest minimum wage laws. So you can raise the minimum wage all you want, yet we're seeing that personal income growth is only falling. Housing, we're in the top 5 for the highest housing costs in the country. That puts us up there with New York, Hawaii, and a few others. Inflation. Colorado has experienced some of the highest inflation rates in the country as of 2025. We're outpacing the national average by quite a bit. Consumer prices are up 15.4% higher today than they were in 2021. One of the reasons we have this high inflation is that beginning in 2019 with Senate Bill 181, Colorado began obstructing energy production. Colorado is a major exporter of energy, of oil and gas, 7th largest producer in the country. And now we're curtailing that production. What does that do? That ends up in us losing a whole bunch of high-wage, blue-collar jobs. I'm talking about people who didn't graduate high school, or maybe they did, but they weren't able to go to college, making 6-figure wages. That's good for Colorado. Don't we want people here to be able to flourish no matter what their background may be? Maybe they came from a poor family and never had the time, money, and opportunity to go to college. We had good jobs for those people, for people who didn't grow up with a silver spoon in their mouths, and now we have taken that away from them. And of course, this is all going to work against the economy for everyone. Commercial real estate is suffering in this state. Half of downtown Denver office buildings, and I think I'm being generous, empty and cannot be leased out. So what has the legislature done to help commercial real estate owners? They passed House Bill 1286 in 2021. I'm joking when I said to help. This requires that commercial buildings over 50,000 square feet, they have to meet strict greenhouse gas reduction targets because, of course, global warming is going, or climate change, as they now call it, is going to destroy us faster than anything. They have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 7% by 2026, 20% by 2030, and this is all over 2021 levels. Owners of buildings face compliance costs for retrofits. They have to, if it's a gas heated building, or if you're building a building, you cannot build it to be heated and cooled by natural gas, which is efficient, cheap, and abundant. Instead, it has to be done with electricity. We don't even have the grid to support this. All of this is damaging to our economy and shows up in all of the key indicators. Job growth is down. Colorado's year-over-year job growth rate was 0.17 from March 24 to 2025. Now that compares to a national rate of 1.2. The difference between 0.17 and 1.2 is almost 10 times fewer new jobs than are being created by the rest of the country. We officially rank 43rd in the country for job growth. Go back to 2017, before we had this left-wing uniparty control over Colorado. And don't think for a minute this represents Colorado values. A lot of these legislators are appointed. The Democratic machine has figured out that if you have someone who's nearing the end of a term, have that person resign, and then the Democratic machine can simply appoint someone, and they appoint radicals. They appoint extremists. And this is who's representing our state right now and making the laws that we all have to live by. In 2017, our job growth rate was 2.4%. Then the left took over the government, and now it's down to 0.17%. That is just an enormous loss. Crime rates have surged since 2018. So it didn't take long after Democrats controlled every element of Colorado government that the average crime rate started to spike. Maybe, just maybe, that's because they decriminalized most crimes, including all illicit hard street drugs. What used to be a felony for possession or distribution of heroin, cocaine, fentanyl is now a misdemeanor. What do you think that did? It attracted drug dealers to Colorado. If you make your living, your fortune, selling drugs, trafficking them, pushing them on kids, this is the best state in which to do business. The legislature made it that way. Post-2018, Colorado's average crime rate exceeds 475 per 100,000 residents. That compares to a nationwide rate of 374.4. U.S. News and World Report last year ranked Colorado as the third most dangerous state in which to live. People moved here for the past 4 or 5 decades to avoid crime, to get away from the coastal cities in Chicago, L.A., New York, you name it, large metropolitan areas that were known for crime. Come to Colorado and their crime was almost unheard of. Our schools are failing. Test scores, post-pandemic data from 2020 to 2021. These are Colorado measures, academic success, often referred to as CMAS scores. They show math performance dropping to only 27.4% of students meeting expectations. And those expectations, that's a state expectation. It's already quite low. You could meet that expectation and not be ready to go out into the real world, but very few are meeting it. Only 27.4% meet that. Literacy proficiency has fallen to 43%. More than half of our children can't read. Achievement gaps are growing wider. For minority students, poor students, special education students, they simply aren't performing at the level that they should be. Colorado has always been a migration state, meaning people, like I said, from coastal cities, from all over the country and all around the globe moved here. It was a privilege to live in Colorado. It's a beautiful state. It's got an enviable climate. There are lots of entertainment options, and there were a lot of career options. Now we have fallen from a top 10 state for in-migration to the bottom 10. People are leaving Colorado in droves. We're at a net loss in recent years in terms of migration. Now, that may sound great for people who want to be the last. You know, there's always this politics of Colorado. Everybody wants to be the last person to move to Colorado. I'll get there and then shut everybody else out. I get that. But when you have people not wanting to, when you have too many people wanting to move to your state, that's a good problem to have. That says that your state is enviable. It's a place people want to live. When you have people who can't get out of here fast enough and are avoiding it, that's a bad problem to have. It means people don't bring good businesses here. It means we don't attract the highest performing professionals. In every way, that is a bad thing. Being a state that underperforms on nearly all quality of life and economic indicators is not the way to control migration into the state. It means the people who live here are experiencing a much lower quality of life than they traditionally have. Homelessness. The number of people living without homes just continues to increase. You can see it all over Denver, Boulder, Aurora, Lakewood, even Colorado Springs. People living in tents, people living along riparian zones of creeks, on sidewalks, in parks, Drugs, as we said, are an enormous problem. Overdose deaths from all drugs rose from 17.4 people for every 100,000 residents in 2018 to 30 for every 100,000 residents in 2023. That's almost a doubling since the left took over all elements of Colorado government. And of course, this corresponds with what we talked about, the decriminalization of drugs. We've attracted drug dealers. We used to attract high-end CEOs, attorneys, scientists in every field. Now we attract drug dealers. The public doesn't like this. Public approval. 2024 political climate survey shows 33% of Colorado residents rate the economy positively. If you break that down by parties, that's 52% of Democrats. So only a little more than half of Democrats think things are going well. Surprised at that. And only 16% of Republicans think things are going well in Colorado. Colorado used to be a place to come and bring up kids, to bring up children, to start a family. Not anymore. The crude birth rate, measuring births per 100,000 population, has been in decline in correlation with Colorado's rising crime rate and the state's reduction in various livability factors. So when you live in a state where you're worried about walking the streets at night, or when you go to a park and you find tents and drunks and needles all over the place, it doesn't exactly inspire you to want to have a large family. You would be bringing children into a hostile environment. The fertility rate, general fertility rate in Colorado, this measures births per 100,000 women ages 15 to 44. This has declined dramatically. It's dropped to 50.2% as of 2023 from 58.7% in 2010. This gives Colorado the country's highest fertility reduction. It's no longer a place where anyone wants to bring up children. We're going to become one of these parentless environments statewide, much like San Francisco. The total fertility rate, which estimates lifetime births per 100,000 women, was 1.48 in 2020, sixth lowest in the United States, and below the replacement rate of 2.1. So as of 2020, we don't have replacement rate fertility in Colorado. Anyone who knows anything about economics knows that replacement rate is important because when people retire, they need to live on pensions, whether it's Social Security, whatever it is. Those are funded by next generations. Those are funded by the working demographic. Well, if you have 10 retirees for every 2 people who are working, that simply doesn't hold up. We're seeing this all over Western Europe, China, which had a one-child policy. Their economy will eventually collapse over this very problem. Now, in Colorado, we can always bring people in, so you can bring migrants into your state to make up for the loss of your birth rate and fertility rate. But we're not doing that. People don't want to live here now for all the reasons we've just discussed. Contributing to this, of course, and showing again that this is not a place conducive to bringing up children, the state's abortion rate is soaring. This is not the kind of data you want to see. A soaring abortion rate in a state that used to be family friendly, that's a very discouraging data point. So abortions increased from 8,873 overall abortions in 2017 to 14,691 in 2023. That's the latest available from Colorado Department of Health and Environment. And that, of course, correlates directly with the fact that this left-wing legislature does everything that it can to subsidize and encourage abortions. I don't know about you, but I don't think that's exactly the kind of place we want to be, where we're killing children is more common than having children and bringing them up to be productive adults. So again, I point all of these negative indicators out because this thing that happened in Colorado Springs the other day, and in another city in Colorado, there was a raid about half that size. This is not some isolated thing that's just an outlier. No, this is the result of one-party control over a state for the last 7 years. Uniparty control, and it's extreme control. These are not moderate politicians with moderate ideas who work across the aisle with Republicans the way it used to work when this was a purple state. No, these legislators think they have a mandate, and they are imposing socialistic left-wing policies on the rest of us at a warp speed. So it's no wonder, it's not surprising in the least that there was an underground nightclub in Colorado that catered primarily to illegal aliens, many of them foreign gang members. That's not surprising. That's the one they caught. We don't know how many of these have not been investigated. That somebody must have had a tip at the DEA. And Pam Bondi, Attorney General Pam Bondi, has weighed in on this. She thinks it's indicative of what's going on across the country. And it certainly is indicative of what's going on in Colorado, where average, ordinary citizens who just want to work and live a peaceful life and provide for their families have to contend with obscene levels of crime, and much of their tax money is going to this demographic. I know people here in Colorado who've lived here their whole lives have fallen on hard times, and they can't get a return call from anyone when they go seeking social services. They're overwhelmed because people can come in here illegally from other countries and simply tap into our social services resources. This is what Milton Friedman, the great Nobel-winning economist, told us. You can have open borders or you can have a welfare state, but you can't have both. Well, right now, Colorado has both. This is the state of affairs in Colorado, a place I love, a place I chose as my home state, a place I chose to bring up 6 children with my wife, a Colorado native. It's worth saving. We who aren't leaving need to reverse this trend. Colorado is too good for this. Colorado needs to be a haven of entrepreneurs, productivity, creativity, not a cesspool of crime and drugs and death. We'll be addressing this in future episodes of Wayne's Word and also what's right in Colorado. For today, that's all, and be sure to subscribe to Wayne's Word and ring the little bell. That way you'll get notices when we come out with a new show. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time on Wayne's Word.
Meet me in the middle of the day, let me hear you say everything's okay.